I do like the cute moments between Tamlin and Feyre. Don't really know how I feel about her and Ryzen now. The fan art though, I think Ryzen is more like attractive, but the personality wise, I like Tamlin's more. Hi, welcome back to another video. So as you would have seen from the title and the thumbnail, in this video, I'm going to be reading the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, also known as acotar, for the first time. So somehow, I have managed to go by unscathed in terms of spoilers for this series, and I actually already read the Throne of Glass series first. So I don't know whether those are related, but yeah, I'm just gonna document my thoughts. It's a little late though because I'm almost like done with the first book. I'm buddy reading this series with a friend, and it's been very entertaining talking about the book to each other. Let me show you where I am at. I'm almost done. I'm like 90% done with A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I guess I can just roughly talk about my thoughts on the book. So I went in knowing that it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So I was like, okay, like the vibes kind of fit. And I haven't told you about the story yet. Okay, so the story is about 19-year-old huntress Feyre. Her family used to be well off, and then her father was like a rich merchant, but I think he sailed like all of his fortunes into this area of the sea, and then everything sank. So then they had a lot of debts to clear and things like that. And also her mother died, I think due to some sickness. And then at her deathbed, Feyre is the youngest of 3 sisters, but the mother asked Feyre to take care of her family. So she entrusted this task to the youngest daughter, which I don't really understand why you would do that, right, as a mother. Perhaps because the mom thinks that Feyre is the most capable of taking care of the family and not like the eldest daughter Nesta or the middle daughter Elaine. Yeah, I don't know. After that, there were also like, I think, debtors who came to reclaim some of their debts, and they also like broke her father's leg, so he now has a limp and everything. After that, and with the loss of his wife, he kind of just like retreated into himself, just like felt sorry for himself and not thinking about how to care for this new family that now has lost the mother figure. So Feyre took it upon herself to hunt for her family for food, because if she doesn't get good at hunting, the whole family starves and things like that. One day, she stumbles across a wolf in the woods, and by the size, she assumes that it's a fairy, and she hates fairies, so she killed the wolf successfully. She thought she got away with it, but she didn't. So this like large beast came to her doorstep and was like, who killed my friend? And then they found out that it was Feyre, and then he was saying that she broke the laws of the treaty. Basically, treaty between fairies and humans in which like there's some peace agreement. So then, because she broke that agreement, she had to either die then and there, or she could follow him back and be his captive. Of course, she chose the safer choice, which was to be his captive. So she went back with him. So he's a fairy that can shapeshift, and he brought her back to the spring court. So after that, she spent her days in the court. It's less of a court and more like their house, their cottage, their mansion. She spent her days at first being very wary of this strange man. They seem harmless, but she's like very cautious, right? And then she also meets another fairy called Lucian. Lucian is more of like a character that you can banter with. And then so slowly she goes from distrust to then trusting them, and then also slowly falling in love with the beast who first took her in, who is called Tamlin. And then afterwards, the story progresses from there. Another thing is that Lucian and Tamlin and everyone else at the spring court have masks on their faces, and they say that it's because this blight came over them while they were at a ball, at a masquerade, and then it left the mask stuck to their faces. So the story progresses from there. Along the way, more things happen. She slowly starts to trust Tamlin and fall in love with him. She also starts to rediscover herself, because she spent a lot of her life tending or fending for her family, that she gave up on her own like interest, which was painting. Even when she was there, she was living in comfort and everything. She felt like she didn't deserve to, because then her family, she didn't know what was happening to them, and she didn't trust what Tamlin was saying. So Tamlin was telling her that they don't know that you were captured. They believe that you went off to care for a dying aunt, a dying rich aunt. And then in the meantime, they are being very well cared for, but she didn't really believe them until she was proven that they were really doing well. So then she immediately was like, okay, I can put down this stone. She believes that they're doing fine and her job is to just stay here and make sure that this continues. So she starts painting again, things like that. My friend and I both agreed that the transition from this murderer of his friend to like slowly courting was a little bit abrupt. But then afterwards we find out that, oh my god, that was the plot twist. I was like, oh my god, it all makes sense, you know? Basically, she finds out that the blight is actually a person. Like throughout the book, they keep alluding to this very dangerous, scary she. She will do things to you, things like that. And then we find out that the blight is actually this person that they were talking about, which is Aramanta. So this Aramanta, I think she's like a fairy queen. Their lands are ruled by 7 high lords. And that was what Feyre knew also, until they discovered that actually this fairy queen is ruling over all of them. So she tricked them somehow such that they fell under her power, fell under her curse, and she has control over their powers. She also wanted Hamlet to be her lover, but he refused her. He sent Lucian to convey that message, right, as his official emissary. But then we find out from there, Lucian's eye got like clawed out, and then he has a metal eye in replacement as what we know of him now. So then she cursed Hamlin, I think, and then she said that if you can break the curse within 7 times 7, so 49 years, then they'll be free. So the curse was that if he could get a human girl to fall in love with him, but this human girl has to be a girl who hates fairies enough to be a killer of a fairy. So he needs to find this girl, court her until she falls in love with him and voluntarily says I love you to him, which was like, oh my god, it makes sense as to why he brought her back, and also how the very transitioning of trying to compliment her and then also trying to slowly court her and things like that. But it still doesn't explain why he fell in love with her, because I thought it would just be like he's using her, you know. But apparently in that short space of time, he fell in love with her. Eventually it didn't work out because Aramanta came to know of this presence of this human through her, I think, right hand man. It's called Ryzan, which I was like, oh my god, I know this name, so he cannot be just a caliphate. He briefly appeared at the start also, and I was like, okay, they're describing him in too much detail for him to be just a caliphate, and it turned out to be Ryzan. After Ryzan discovered Feyre, Tamlin then decided to send Feyre back to her home because then he thinks that he can't protect her from what's about to happen. And also the whole mask thing is that she made that happen so that the girls that he brings back will not be falling for him so easily because they can't really tell what he looks like underneath. But I mean, there's other things apart from the facial features that can make you attractive, is what I'm trying to say. But okay, and then it also means that Andras died for this purpose. So she's like, oh my goodness, so Tamlin has been sending out these men for like weeks or decades to try to get them killed so that they can save the court, which is like, oh my god, it's so bad. Like, it's so sad also. And Tamlin is like a very kind, noble person. So that was slowly killing him also. And 49 years, but there were some decades where he didn't want to do that at all because at the start he did it and then all of them kept dying for the wrong reasons and nothing was working out. And then he was like, okay, let's put a stop to it. And then afterwards, I think closer to the deadline, then he was like slowly sending out one by one, and then that's where Feyre came in. In the end, it didn't happen. Hamlin got pulled back to under the mountain where Aramanta rules over the place, and then our dear Feyre decides that she is a powerful human enough to brave against the danger of fairies, and she decides to march into there. And somehow there's a lot of plot convenience and plot armor here. Like throughout the book, I got quite annoyed with her because she's basically doing a lot of things that she's told not to do. Like example, there was this part in the story where there's this celebration called the Fire Night, and Tamlin and Lucian were telling her like, you should not come out of the room, lock the doors, come out next morning. This Feyre couldn't stand it and unlocked her door, went all the way to where the drums and everything was going, to the location of the Fire Night. That's where she met Ryzan, by the way. This human girl voluntarily brought herself to a place where it would be teeming with fairies. I don't know why. Then we find out that the purpose of that is actually to further the plot lah. So Tamlin, as a High Lord, he has to, after the ritual is done, he has to choose a female to make love, such that the energy that they bring about will bring life to the land or something like that. And I was like, oh my god. Yeah, so then Lucian discovered Tamlin there after the whole Ryzen thing happened. Then he carried her and ran all the way back to the manor, and he was like, I need to go back before Tamlin comes out and smells you and then can't find you. He's gonna be a beast. He's not gonna be himself. You won't like it also, because then he'll control you against your will, things like that. So she went back to her room and locked the door, went back to sleep, woke up at 2 a.m. and unlocked the door again to go out and get bread. And then that's where Tamlin saw her, and then they had like this steamy moment. And I was like, oh my god, Vera is a human, but somehow she's surviving against all of these things. So that was my sidetrack. Going back to Under the Mountain, right? She then discovers that Tamlin is like sitting on the throne beside Aramanta, but he looks very different. Like he's very silent, he doesn't look at her, he's just like, oh, I don't know this woman, things like that. And so Feyre tried to say I love you to him, and then it didn't work. So then Aramanta offered her a deal, which we learned from the conversation with another character, that she should not make deals with fairies unless she's dying. But she did it anyway. So the deal was that she had to go through 3 trials to prove her love for Tamlin, and then she, Tamlin, and all the members of the Spring Court can go back home. That's where I'm at in the story. So she passed 2 rituals already, and then we have this whole plot of Ryzen coming in. So from the first trial, he discovers an interest in her, and then she was left very badly injured, that she was getting infection already, like fever and things like that. And Lucian was like nowhere to be found, because Lucian healed her when she was in the prison before, but then he was taking a while. And then Ryzen came and offered her another deal, in that if he heals her, then she will belong to him for 1 week every month for the rest of her life. I was like, girl, you should have negotiated your terms better, such that it's not for the rest of your life. And even when she was making a deal with the Fairy Queen, I was like, you should have negotiated such that you won't be put in peril. But I guess that's quite difficult because they want her to die. But yeah, that's not the point. Anyway, so she agreed to that deal with Ryzen, and then she has this black inked tattoo on her forearm all the way down with an eye over here, because according to Ryzen, whenever members of his court, the Night Court, make deals, they need to have a branding. Slowly we start to see this love triangle happening between Ryzen and Tamlin, even while this whole thing is happening, this trial stick. So that's where I'm at. It's a good book, I would say. Normally fantasies I can't really get into anymore unless they're really good enough that capture my attention, make me want to continue reading. And this has been that. I've been reading non-stop, which is great. And it's my 800th read book is going to be A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I was like, oh, that's quite a nice ring to it. Yeah, so those are my thoughts so far. Basically, I just think that there's a lot of plot armor and plot convenience. I do like the cute moments between Tamlin and Feyre, but my friend rightly pointed out that it's a little too sudden, which I agree with, but I think if you could have done with a bit more slow burn, but I did enjoy it nonetheless. Don't really know how I feel about her and Ryzen now, but I think maybe because following the trend of Throne of Glass, I think it might be going towards her and Ryzen having a story rather than her and Tamlin. The fan art though, I think Ryzen is more attractive, but the personality wise, I like Tamlin's more, if that makes sense. So I'll come back to you again when I finish the book. Okay, so I finished the last few pages I have yet to read for A Court of Thorns and Roses, and you would have seen my reaction as I read the last few pages. So let's debrief. In the end, her last trial, I think I didn't even give you the details of the first 2 trials. Okay, in the first trial, she had to escape or hunt this large worm with razor sharp teeth. She managed to do so using the bones of the prey that the worm ate. She set a trap for the worm, and then it just acted as a bait. So that's how she killed the worm and climbed out of the pit also, using the bones. The second trial, I don't know whether Amaranta knew that Feyre couldn't read, but her second trial was to answer a quiz, and she had just 3 options. So this one she kind of cheated. I think by making that deal with Rhysand, because I just read the pronunciation guide after the book ended, and then I realized that he's called Resand. Through their deal, right, he could kind of convey emotions, feelings to her hand. So she was about to choose one of the options. So like when she touched one of the things to pull, then I think either her hand or the thing would be like very hot, and then she'll feel pain. Then she pulled on the one that didn't cause her pain, and that's how she passed the second trial. Then the last trial was she had to kill 3 fairies. So they came in like with sacks over their heads. Then right before she killed them, the servants would lift their hoods. So she killed 2 fairies, and then the last one was Tamlin. And then she was like, oh my god, what do I do, right? Then in the end, she kind of figured out through the conversations that she eavesdropped on while she was in the spring court, and she kind of like bet on the fact that they kept saying that Tamlin has a heart stone. So she was like, okay, let me take this literally. And she stabbed him, and then the blade came up with a dent. So he really had a heart stone. And because she killed all 3, technically, she stabbed all 3, she passed the last trial. But then Amaranta was like, oh, our deal said that I would release you, but we didn't discuss on when. And then I was like, oh my god. The part on instantaneous freedom was only if she answered her riddle successfully, and then she would instantaneously be free. So then Amaranta began to torture Feyre until she suddenly like realized that the answer to the riddle was love. And then that's when Tamlin's power was fully restored back to him, and he killed Amaranta. But before that, Rhysand tried to fight back against Amaranta, even though she was like all powerful, right? Just like, oh, that's kind of cute. Meanwhile, Tamlin was like suffering from the injuries from the ash blade that had pierced through his heart, and it wasn't healing as quickly, so that's why he was like incapacitated. So in the end, Amaranta was killed by Tamlin, all her servants disappeared, but by then Feyre died already because the torture was too much for a human to handle. And then because the main character cannot die so soon, all the High Lords came forward to put something in Feyre's body such that she woke up again and she was a High Fae now, so she is no longer a human. So Tamlin and Feyre kind of like reunited, but Feyre was kind of like, oh my god, I just killed 2 fairies, I'm a murderer now. It's different from when I killed Andras that time. She went to meet Rhysand, or Rhys, after she had a passionate night with Tamlin, and then Rhysand was like telling her, oh, it's good that you have these emotions, that kind of thing. He was like kind of comforting her, and I was realizing that in this whole Under the Mountain arc, Rhysand was the one that was there for her and like helping her get through each time. So there was once after one of the trials and she was crying, and he came to visit her in her cell, and he licked her tears or something like that, and then that made her like angry or like disgusted with him, so then she stopped crying. And also this conversation after the whole blood trials ended. And then afterwards, before Rhys left for the night court, he looked at Feyre again as a High Fae, and like this shock passed over his face. So I was thinking, is it because maybe after becoming a High Fae, Rhys sees Feyre as his mate? So like, okay, maybe for the second book. And then the first book ends where Feyre and Tamlin return to the Spring Court, and then that's where the first book ends. I gave the first book 4 stars because of like how there's plot convenience and plot armor for Feyre, and also the chemistry between Tamlin and Feyre was good, but it progressed too fast. Those 2 points made me just give it a 4. But I heard that the second book is really good. I don't know what to expect, but we shall go into it.
Yeah, that's where I'm ending this video, because as you can see, it's already 18 minutes. So thank you for watching if you did. I hope you enjoyed, even though it was just me yapping to the camera for 18 minutes without any b-roll. Yeah, I was a blubbering mess, so I don't know if anybody watched it, but I filmed my next book reading vlog already, so I'll just leave it out there for anybody who wants to see it, as in I'm gonna work on it now afterwards. But I hope you enjoyed the first video, and if you enjoyed, please give this video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel, because then you will find out when the next video gets uploaded. I hope you're having a great day or a great week whenever or wherever you're watching. Remember to stay hydrated, and I'll see you in my next video.